Hey guys, Nate here, and today I am going to be doing my official spoiler filled review of Scream 2022. So, fair warning, 100%, no holding back, no holds barred. This is going to be all spoilers. So, if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, wait till you see the movie, which I encourage you all to do. Before you watch this video. So I've been asked, the movie hasn't even been out for a week, and my inboxes on all my social medias have been full, just day after day, constantly people wanting to know what did I think of the movie. So that's what I'm here to tell you. What did I think of the movie? So I'm just gonna get right into it. I'm not going to do like a scene by scene breakdown. I'm just gonna do like a general review. Pretty much everybody that knows me knows Scream is basically my life. It's my favorite horror franchise of all time. It's my favorite movie franchise of all time. And it's just very special to me. I've been lucky to be involved, albeit a small amount, but I've been lucky to be involved in the films in a small way, starting with four, and then even carrying on into this one. Um, I did the Scream Comes Home event, the Scream-A-Ween event, the massive worldwide media coverage events at Stu's house. Um, so I've just been very, very, very lucky. I was able to appear in the documentary that Anthony Massey produced called Still Screaming. Um, just been very, very, very lucky to be involved in the Scream universe the way that I have been. So, having said that, where do I? We'll start there. We'll start there. Just to warn you, this is just going to be all over the place because my brain is just still like on fire with this movie. Like I'm still on this high from Scream Weekend. It's not over for me. Um, so where do I rank the other films, or how do I rank the other films? Obviously, the original Scream is the best in my opinion. It is my favorite. I truly believe that it is a absolute flawless film in general, and absolutely a flawless horror movie. Scream 2, I feel, is an absolute perfect sequel and almost a perfect film. I say almost because there's just two small issues I have with Scream 2. They're not major deals, but they did prevent it from me saying that it's perfect film, like the original. Scream 3, I love Scream 3, but again, not as good as 1, not as good as 2. And I just felt there was too much humor to it. Again, I love all these movies. I've seen them all a bajillion times. I know them all like the back of my hand. Um, Not saying I don't like Scream 3. I just feel that when compared to the first and the second, it was just a little bit too goofy. In my opinion, it was missing that perfect Kevin Williamson tone of comedy and horror mix. Like, he really perfected the comedy and horror tone for Scream 1 and carried it over to Scream 2, and it was definitely missing in 3. Aaron Kruger, I felt, did not understand the characters that Kevin created, and he didn't have that right balance as far as the humor versus horror goes. Scream 4, loved Scream 4. Kind of the same along the lines of Scream 3, though. I had a lot of issues with it. Still love the film. There's no bad Scream movie. That's what's great. That's what's great about this series is we're 5 entries into a series, a horror series, a slasher series, and there's not been one bad entry yet, in my opinion, and that's like unheard of. Like, how many franchises have like 5 in a row and you don't have a single bad one? Like I said, 4 I had a lot of issues with as well. A lot of small things, but also kind of the same thing. Even though like Kevin did come back and write the original script. They brought Aaron in to do rewrites, and Wes directed again. It still was, in my opinion, 4 was closer to 3 than it was 1 and 2 as far as tone goes. I felt like it was overly goofy, overly comedic. And yeah, so I did have a lot of issues with 4, but still love the movie. Now, Scream 2022. I loved this movie. I absolutely loved it. I adored it. It's perfect. This is a perfect sequel. It is almost better than Scream 2 in my opinion. My order of ranking the franchise was 1, 2, 4, and 3. It is now 1, 2, 5, 4, 3. And I seriously think that upon more viewings, that this will take over Scream 2 on my timeline. Now, again, that could be controversial. I already see people online saying, oh, anyone saying that this is better than Scream 2 is not. That's fine. That's your opinion. I know it's controversial. I have a lot of controversial opinions about Scream, actually, that a lot of people don't know. But yeah, I truly think that this film is potentially better than Scream 2. And it's almost right up there alongside the original for me. That's how good this movie is. I think Wes would be absolutely 100% proud of this film. There's a lot of people out there that say that they don't think he would, which I just think is just ridiculous. Wes was a very humble man, and he really appreciated things like people that dedicated things to him and people that would say, I did this because of you. But I really think these guys knocked it out of the park. The new directors of Matt and Tyler that directed Radio Not, Radio Silence, that whole team, they did a phenomenal job. And knowing that Scream is like their favorite movie, their favorite horror movie, and that Wes Craven and Scream was essentially what made them want to be directors in the first place, it really shows. The best way I can say it is that this movie is for real fans by real fans. That's how it felt watching it. It's like, man, these guys really truly understand this movie, this franchise, the characters, Wes's direction. They truly understood it. And even the writer, James Vanderbilt, wrote an amazing script. I thought the opening scene was absolutely incredible. I know a lot of people were complaining because it's like, oh, nobody died. This opening scene was amazing. It was super tense. It was, in my opinion, the best opening scene since Scream. And it was just incredible. And my thing, too, was like, that was part of the fun. Part of the fun was that the whole time you're watching, you're waiting for the second victim. All the movies have 2 opening scene victims. Well, that's kind of the point here. It's like we've had that for 4 movies, so they finally did something different. We got an opening scene where there's only 1 victim, and the victim survives, which we later find out was intentional. But it was just incredibly shot. It was very tense, and Ghostface from the get-go in this film, not from the opening scene, from the moment we get Ghostface, and then throughout the rest of the film, this is the most brutal, terrifying Ghostface we have ever seen in this franchise, in my opinion. Now, Ghostface has in my opinion, Ghostface hasn't been scary since Scream 1. We'll say that. I know that he guts people and stuff in the first one, but this Ghostface was just absolutely relentless, brutal. You're not watching it thinking, oh, I wonder what goofy, character is behind the mask there. You're watching this Scream going, wow, whoever is the killer this time, they're not fucking around. This is this person means business. They are psychotic, they are brutal, they are terrifying, they are out to kill. This was the most terrified I have ever been of Ghostface since that opening scene in Scream 1. Absolutely terrifying. They nailed Ghostface 100%. And Roger Jackson, the voice, once again, went back to the roots. I love that in the opening scene on the phone call with Tara, we actually get kind of the nice version of the voice, which we haven't really heard since Scream 2. In Scream 1, the calls don't start sinister. They start kind of innocent, and the voice kind of little off, but very like seductive and kind of non-threatening. And then it just, as the tension grows, the voice changes to become more sinister. We get that in all the calls in the first Scream. In the second Scream, we really only get that like really briefly with the call to Cece, where the killer's just kind of having a normal conversation, but it's very brief before he gets into being sinister and menacing. And then from there on out, like 3 and 4, they just go straight to it. Like anytime there's a phone call, it's Ghostface, it's Roger Jackson being menacing and taunting and threatening, like right off the bat. There's no waiting around. It's just like get right to it. This one, it takes it back to the roots of what made it scary, I think, where the character's not really sure who they're talking to, if this person does in fact mean well or if they're there to do harm. So I thought that was great. But yeah, Ghostface in general in this film, brutal, savage, scary, terrifying. Like I said, I haven't been this scared of Ghostface since Scream 1, and I truly think that this Ghostface might be even more terrifying than that. They really, really nailed Ghostface. 100%. Ghostface is scary again. Scream is back. Couldn't be more thrilled with the film. I just loved it. I felt like more so than Scream 4, as far as the legacy characters go, Sidney, Dewey, and Gale, this one really authentically nailed where they likely would be at this point in their lives and how they likely would be acting at this point in their lives, like what type of person they'd be, what their personality would be like, what their reactions to certain situations would be. I really felt like this film 100% nailed it way better than Scream 4 did. I felt like I had a lot of issues with where the characters were in Scream 4 and how they were portrayed and how they reacted to certain situations. It just all felt so off. This one nailed it 110%. The kills were great. They were brutal. I did see a lot of people complain that, well, Ghostface, he's doesn't really do anything, but he's got like he just stabs people, and why can't we get like something a little bit more creative or use something different? Well, I understand that sentiment, but to me it's like, well, that's Ghostface though. That's him. That's the persona of Ghostface. He's not Jason Voorhees. He's not Michael Myers. Breaking necks and gouging eyeballs out, and he's not Jason, like, just using anything he can find as a weapon. Like, that's not Ghostface. Ghostface is... He wears a cloak, he wears the robe, he wears the mask, he's got the nice, clean Buck 120 knife, and that's what he does. He chases you and he kills you. He stabs you with it. So I really didn't have any issues with that. I wasn't bored with any of the kills. I thought they were all great. I loved... Someone said too there was a lot of neck stuff. I mean, I like that because that's like, I don't want that's like last thing I'd want to do is get stabbed in the neck like that, because you're fucked. But yeah, I don't know. I had no issues with the kills whatsoever. I thought they were creative. I thought they were inventive. I thought they were something we hadn't seen before. Again, even the stabbing. There were stabbing scenes in this where it reminded me of one of, in my opinion, the most brutal like stab scenes or deaths that I've ever seen in a film, which is David Fincher's Zodiac, which coincidentally, little bit of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, was also written by James Vanderbilt. But the Lake Berryessa murder scene, where they're tied up and Zodiac just starts stabbing and they can't do anything and they're just rolling around and it's just stab after stab after stab all over the body, all over the place. Like there was a bunch of like stab like deaths and scenes like that in this film that were just terrifying and brutal and hard to watch. So and then the Billy Loomis stuff. So yes, I was as shocked as everybody else. We all kind of knew there were some like mishaps and slip ups on social media from some of the new cast that had like posted something about, oh, it was great to work with Skeet Ulrich, and it was like, well, what do you mean? Is he in this? Like, clearly Billy's dead, so we knew that if he appeared, it would be in some sort of flashback scene, which we all kind of assumed we were going to get. And I know a lot of us were worried, like, oh, it spoiled the whole movie, because obviously if there's a flashback scene, it's probably back to, like, Stu's house, because we know Stu's house is appearing in the movie, thanks to the trailer. So the killer's probably somehow connected to the first film, and there's going to be some flashback that shows, and I know a lot of people thought it was going to be Judy Hicks. A lot of people were like, Judy Hicks is the killer. She was probably at the party. She probably helped Billy and Stu. We're going to get a flashback showing that. That was one of the more popular predictions for who the killer would be based on these Skeet Ulrich leaks. But yeah, I did not expect to see him appear so early in the film and in the form that he does as a vision that Sam Carpenter is having, who we find out again super early. They don't. I like that they did that. I feel like most movies they would save that for the end. They'd save that as a surprise. You might show Billy and her having hallucinations of him and taking medication to try to control it, but I feel like most movies that do something like that, they would try to drag it out as long as possible before they were like, oh, by the way, surprise, here's why she's having these visions, because Billy's actually her dad. She's actually Billy's daughter. I like that this movie just was like, fuck it, we're showing you Billy and we're immediately going to tell you why she's having those visions. So then the mystery is no longer why is she having visions of Billy. Instead, it makes the mystery more interesting, where it then becomes the killer who calls Sam says, I'm someone who knows your little secret. So then that becomes the mystery, is like, well, who would the killer be, and why and how would they know her secret? So that to me is a more interesting mystery than just showing visions of Billy and having the audience try to figure out why. I think it's worked so much better and was so much more clever to show the audience and tell them immediately this is why she's having these visions, because she's the daughter of Billy Loomis. She takes the medication to try to control it. And oh, by the way, the killer, whoever it is, knows the secret that nobody else knows. So you're left to be even more intrigued by that mystery of who knows the secret and why are they, what does that have to do with what is happening with what they're doing. I thought the cast was great. I had no complaints about any of the new cast. I thought the characters were awesome. I thought they were the best characters and cast since Scream 2. I felt for all of them. They were all awesome. They all did a great job. Vince, I know he wasn't in it a lot. He was in it a lot less than I thought he would be. But I was honestly okay with it. I was okay with it just because I felt like he was a really good, like, this could be the killer. Nope, we're just all about, like, we're just showing you, like, right off the bat, like, no, like, people will die in this film. And I just thought it worked. I thought what they did with Vince worked. Like, he was on it. He was in the film as long as he needed to be, in my opinion. Um, and talk about taking big swings. I saw an article that said that the writers and the directors were encouraged by Kevin Williamson to take really big swings with the script and with the story that they were telling. And man, did they. I mean, spoiler alert, Dewey dies, which I broke my heart, shed quite a few tears. Um, really sucks. I hated to see Dewey go, but in the same sense, I did feel like it was warranted and necessary. And I see a lot of people, and again, your opinion's your opinion, completely fine. But I have seen a lot of people say like, "Oh, I was actually kind of mad at the movie. I liked it, but they killed Dewey, and that's just like a no. Wes would have never. Wes would be, oh, he'd be mortified that they did that, and you don't come in as the new guys and kill a legacy character. I disagree with that, and I can also tell you that here's why. Um, these three core characters have survived 4 films already, which means they've survived 4 mass murder sprees. 4. They've survived 4 times. I remember, obviously, when Scream 3 ended, I was very happy. I was sad to see Cotton go, but I was happy that Sidney, Dewey, and Gale survived and lived happily ever after. I was very happy about that. Well, 11 years later, when Scream 4 came out, I was worried. I was like, oh no, they're going to kill one of the main 3. They almost have to. I mean, at this point, it would just be ridiculous if all 3 of them survived again. They have to kill them. I don't want one of them to die, or any of them to die, or all of them to die, but somebody has to go, because at this point, it's just ridiculous that all 3 would survive again. And I really felt like somebody was dying in Scream 4, and I wasn't sure who. I thought they might kill Sidney. I thought they might just kill Dewey. I thought they might kill all 3. Who knows? At the time they were talking about this film is supposed to start, introduce you to a new cast of characters that are going to carry you through the next 2. And in the end, none of them died, and there was just no, like, you never got that fear of like anything can happen. So to me, I felt like that was a major missed opportunity in Scream 4. I think that it was expected and somebody should have died in 4. They didn't. So when 5 was announced, I was just like, this time somebody really has to go. And if they don't take that swing, then there's just no point in doing it, because there's no danger anymore. It's just almost silly. Like, it's like these 3 characters will live through anything. You never fear for them. Well, I feared for them going into this, and when Dewey makes the phone call to Sidney and the text to Gale saying, don't come back to Woodsboro, I immediately was like, oh god, they're not going to come back, but Dewey's going to get killed, and that's what's going to bring them back. Unfortunately, I was right, but again, I feel like it was completely necessary. I thought the scene was brutal, it was emotional, it was done very respectfully, though, for such a beloved character, and I just loved it. I really did. As much as I hated to see Dewey go, I loved it. It was a great scene, and it really showed you, like, oh, unlike, even though the tagline for, like, Scream 3 was like, all bets are off, welcome to the final act, and they kept saying that, and like, oh, in Scream 4, the main characters, like, they're in jeopardy, and it's a reboot, and it's this, like, even though they said that in Scream 3 and 4, like, you never felt that danger, and nothing happened to them. This one, when that happened halfway through the film, you were immediately like, oh fuck, like, any of them could go. Like, Gale's next, who knows? Sidney could die. Like, they went all the fucking way, and I think that was great. Also, I had seen an article going back to the Billy moments. I love the Billy moments. I thought they worked so well. I thought Billy looked great. Everybody was like, "Oh, he was CGI DH." Well, no shit. The dude's like 50. Like he still looks amazing for 50. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't look like he's like 18 anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's just, of course they DH'd him. I mean that's Hollywood now. That's how they do it, and you know it was expected. So I thought it looked as good as it possibly could. I thought it was great. Um, I thought his performance was great. It was just, I thought it was great. I had no issues with it whatsoever. It was the only moment in the film that to me didn't feel like a Scream film. Like I was briefly like, what is happening right now? She's having a vision of a dead killer. This isn't Scream. This doesn't happen in Scream. But that's why I loved it. And then I later read an article after the movie came out where Kevin Williamson pretty much said that that was the one moment from the script that he told these new filmmakers, um, guys, this is the only part of the script that I think doesn't feel like Scream, but that's why I'm encouraging that you absolutely do it. So I just, yeah, I agree with that. I think again that was, it was awesome to be thrown off like that and have a moment that's like, this doesn't feel like a Scream movie, but in a good way. I apologize that this is just so kind of like mishmashed and all over the place. It's just my thoughts. Like I said, my brain is just still in like overload with this experience and how amazing I thought this movie was. But I just felt they really nailed it. They nailed the horror, they nailed the comedy perfectly. The directors just, they nailed everything about this movie. I could not be happier. Like this was this was the best experience I had watching a Scream film for the first time since the original, and I mean that. And yeah, it's just, I'm just in awe at how amazing this movie was. They did absolutely incredible. Um, and I mean, the killer reveal, like, hello, how amazing was that? We get that great scene in Stu's house where all the surviving characters are all in one room. And they're all like come in at different times, and it's like, where were you? Where were you? Where were you? Well, I was here. She was there. Where were you? Da-da. They're all going back and forth, and you know, none of them really have the greatest alibi. So you're like, holy shit, it could be any one of them. And talk about doing a reveal in a way that we've never seen before. To have that many characters still alive, um, and to have just in the middle of that, Amber just to pull out that gun and just shoot Liv right in the head, confirming she's at least one of the killers, and everybody just scatters. I was like, this is fucking amazing. Did not see that coming at all. It was shocking. It was just great. Fun fact, by the way, I found out afterwards doing some research that Amber Freeman, the character, that's actually the writer James Vanderbilt's wife's name. Her name's Amber Freeman. So not only did he name a character after his wife, why not? Fuck it. He went all out. James is like, fuck it, I'm naming the killer after you, babe. I thought that was great, actually. I thought that was really cool. And yeah, Richie, Jack Quaid, great character, great twist. I thought the motive was 100% on point. I thought it was believable. I kind of love that there's a lot of people in the community right now that are kind of going batshit crazy over that, and it's driving them nuts because it's kind of like pointing at you, like, hey, you toxic fan that you know what I'm talking about. You know, you spend like your entire life online saying how bad all the sequels are and how this one's gonna suck, and you know it. And then you go to see it, and you get online, and you say, "Oh, it's the worst sequel ever." And it's like, of course, that's your opinion, but you know, maybe you're just mad because like the commentary and people they were pointing the finger at, and this was you, like Mr. Toxic Fan. Again, that's not to say that anybody that dislikes this movie is a toxic fan. Let me get that out there straight. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking about the people who literally make it like this is my existence now, is to be online 24/7 saying how bad this movie is, especially when before it even came out and they saw it, they were online saying how bad the movie was going to be. Those are the toxic fans that unfortunately you have with any franchise like this with that many fans. But I did love that that it was a direct commentary on that, and I thought it was very timely. Um, but yeah, in general, overall, I love this movie. Um, I just really couldn't be happier with it. I mean, we got 5 films now, and they're all good. None of them are bad. Some are better than others, but to have the fifth one be maybe the best one since the original is almost unheard of. It's just crazy. But I'm so happy. Um, and now, having said that, having given all the praise, I did have a few. I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. There's a few issues I had with it. They're minor, minuscule, but I'm going to go over them for you really quick, just because I do want to point out, like, yeah, there was a couple issues I had, and again, super minor things. The first issue that I had, really, and again, these are all very minor, but there was only one, like, almost like a transition between scenes that I found like kind of off in the entire movie. I thought the transition, I mean, everything about this movie was so amazing. The cinematography, everything was absolutely amazing. The score, the directing, the writing, the acting, it was so on point. Um, but there was one series of scene, like transition, that it just kind of felt off to me, where it was like just a little bit confusing, where I was like kind of like, where are we? And that was early on in the film, where it literally pretty much goes from the students in school or outside of school, I guess, like on lunch break or whatever, or before school, outside, kind of having the discussion. So it's daytime and the kids are at school talking about the attack. Um, and then we go from that to the kids are in a bar, which at first you're like, wait, they're high school, right? How are they in a bar? Oh, maybe it's a bar during the daytime and they're allowed in there. Because I know there's bars where it's like, if you're under 21, you can technically be there until like a certain time of night. Then you have to leave. But that's not the thing that was weird for me. It was just like the transition from like school in the day to now they're in a bar. Then they all get kicked out of the bar. The whole group and Vince, they're asked to leave. And then we immediately go to Vince, like, in some random alley, pissing on a building. And, which I love that scene, by the way. Like, Vince's death was incredible with Red Right Hand playing. Like, as he's choking on his own blood. Fucking amazing. Amazing. But that was it. And again, minor, super minor. Just, it felt like something was missing there. The way it went from, like, they're all in a bar and it's not really established, like, how they got there, when they got there, how long had they been there. Was this like after school? Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? And they all get kicked out, and now it's just like it's just Vince outside of what I presume to be the bar. And it goes into that scene. So that was the only little transition where I kind of was like, wait, how did we get here? But again, super minor, super duper duper minor. The second issue that I had with the film, and it might not even be an issue because I think I've already figured out an explanation for it, but follow with me here. So we know because of Scream 4 that there was seven stab movies. In 2011, which we know is when Scream 4 actually not only was released, but when it takes place in the timeline, because they say in this film about how every so many years, some other idiot decides to put on a ghost face mask and, copycat and do whatever. And the last time it happened was 2011. So we know that Scream 4 was released in 2011 and that it takes place in 2011. So in 2011, in Scream 4, there are 7 stab films. And it is established in that film that the first 3 were based on true stories. What happened to Sydney, which would be the events of Scream 1, 2, and 3. So Stab 1 through 3 were based on true stories. And then 4, 5, 6, and 7, all the sequels were made up based on Gail Weathers' novels. So they were all fiction. They were all fake. So in this film, there's only been one new Stab movie since Stab 7, and that is just called Stab, but it's really Stab 8, which was again another great scene where they basically made fun of the fact that this Scream's called Scream and not Scream 5. I love that. But where I got confused is that when they're showing the Stab 8 clips, it's Ghostface with a flamethrower and the chrome mask, and it's directed by Rian Johnson, which was like a nod at like how much shit he got for The Last Jedi, which was Star Wars 8. Um, and there's also discussions in the film where the characters literally say that, you know, oh, Stab the reboot or Stab 8 or whatever you want to call it, it was so terrible because it was all made up and it had nothing to do with the original legacy characters and blah, 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 blah. Well, then in the film, Wes Hicks makes the comment that after they realize like, oh, everyone that's being attacked is somehow related to like past characters. So in the Stab franchise, and Wes makes the comment like, my mom is a character in one of these movies, so he feels like they're in danger. Well, which movie is she a character in? Because Stab 1 through 7 was already made when Scream 4 happened, and Judy Hicks wasn't in the movies till Scream 4. And if the only other Stab film to come out after that, which, so basically the only movie she could have been a character in would be Stab 8. But in this movie, they say literally Stab 8 has nothing to do with anything that happened in Woodsboro, and it's just all made up, and none of the legacy characters are involved. So did they get the amount of Stab movies like wrong? Or how did this, you know, how did this happen? Again, not huge. What I was actually talking to it about this with Nick Meese. We had a discussion about it, and basically what we settled on was just because it didn't involve the legacy characters. Well, the legacy characters really are Sidney, Dewey, and Gale, and just because it was completely made up doesn't mean that Judy Hicks couldn't have been a character in the film, which 100% is correct. So that's what we're going with. That, yeah, Stab 8 may not have been based on the events of Scream 4, but Judy Hicks still could have been a character in it. So my third minor issue with the film is the continuity for the Stab footage. I love that we got new Stab footage in this. I thought it was amazing. I loved seeing the Stab footage of Randy scene. I loved just seeing the Stab footage at Stu's house. I thought that was amazing. But my issue that I had was the continuity because, as you know, we already have seen Stab. We've already seen scenes from Stab in Scream 2 and in Scream 4 again. So we basically see the opening scene of Stab in those movies. And obviously, as you know, Ghostface is in it, and he's wearing like a full-on killer sparkle robe with an original like Ghostface mask. I think it's a Gen 2. So we already know what Ghostface looks like in Stab, the movie. And in this film, we get new footage, new scenes from Stab that we haven't seen before at Stu's house that include Ghostface. And Ghostface is wearing like a black kind of cartoonish looking Fun World robe and one of the like hard plastic masks that looks all goofy. And I get why they did that. I totally get it. They were just like, oh, let's make Ghostface look as ridiculous as possible because it's Stab. It's the movie based on what actually happened. So I totally get that. But it just messes with, like, the continuity is so off where it's like everything about it matches perfectly except that. Like, all that Stab footage totally looks like it's from the same movie that we saw the opening scene for in Scream 2 and Scream 4, but Ghostface is just completely different. So that was one little minor issue that I had with it. And the last issue that I had with it, and still minor, but probably the biggest of the little tiny issues that I had, was obviously I know they didn't actually shoot at Stu's actual house in Santa Rosa. They shot the film in North Carolina. In order to get the tax credits, you have to shoot the entire film there. So they had to rebuild it on a soundstage, which they did. It's my understanding that they used a ton of photos for reference, which a lot of them were from our Scream Comes Home event that we took. And I also read an article that said that they even sent somebody to the house in Santa Rosa to kind of like get even more photos and measurements and, you know, all that stuff. So they really wanted to rebuild it like exact. But there's a fucking basement in this one, and there's no basement in Stu's house. And we know there's no basement in Stu's house, not just because, like, I threw that event there, and all these people have been there. I've been there many times. Like, it's not like we know there's no basement in Stu's. Like, number one, there's hardly any basements in California. Not saying there isn't any, but there hardly is any. But there's no basement in Stu's. In Scream 1, where they're hiding Sydney's dad is the food pantry, and you can see that in the film. There's no basement. And all of a sudden in this movie, what was the food pantry where they hid the dad is now the basement door that leads to a basement that was never there before. And even you could say, like, well, they never said it was a food pantry. Someone said that to me. They're like, well, they never said it was a food pantry in Scream 1, so how do you know it wasn't a basement? It's like, okay, fair enough, but literally Stu backs into the door like this, backwards, which if there was a basement there in Scream 1, he would have fallen down the steps. Because in this movie, they open the door, and the basement steps are right there. They go right down. Stu literally backs in and keeps walking before the door closes. So if there was the basement, he wouldn't have kept walking. He would have fell right down. There's that. And also, when Stu says, I'll be right back, and goes into that room like that, he's literally only in there long enough for Billy to say, do you know what time it is? It's after midnight. It's your mom's anniversary. Congratulations, we killed her exactly 1 year ago today. That's like, what, 10 seconds? You're telling me it took Stu 10 seconds to walk backwards down a narrow flight of basement steps, retrieve Sydney's dad, Neil Prescott, who is like bound and gagged and tied up, and somehow carry him up the steps in 10 seconds? It doesn't make sense. Like, clearly that was never intended to be a basement in Scream 1, even though they might not necessarily say, oh, we kept your dad in the food pantry the whole time, the locked food pantry. Like, even though they don't say that, my point is that was never meant to be a basement. So why is it a basement in this film? And especially having gone there themselves to get reference photos and seeing all the other reference photos, they know there's no basement there. And I would understand it if the basement scenes had, if there was a reason for the scenes to have taken place in a basement, but I didn't see a reason for that. And what made it even more frustrating to me, in my opinion, was that the scenes in the basement were like, it's where they get the beer from, it's where this happens and that happens. Basically, it's like what the garage was in the first one, and which is never seen in this movie. And why not? It was the garage was arguably the most recognizable location at that house from Scream 1 was the garage, and probably like the kitchen. So obviously we see the kitchen. It's where the finale takes place, which was fucking awesome, by the way. But the other most recognizable location from that house in Scream 1 is the garage. And why did we not have a scene in the garage? And furthermore, why are we going to the basement to get beer and not the garage? I understand somebody else lives there and it's been 25 years and, maybe they don't keep a fridge in the garage. They keep it in a basement. Fair enough. My problem was just that, why create a basement when there never was one? Especially when those basement scenes 100% could have taken place in the garage, and should have, in my opinion. Now, maybe I missed something. Maybe something said or something's pointed out that, well, this is why it was a basement, because we wanted you to think this. Like, I guess maybe if they're in the garage, there's another exit. So if you're in the garage, maybe that's it. Maybe I just answered the question myself while I'm ranting about it. Maybe because everybody that was in the basement who would come out and be like, oh, it couldn't have been me, I was in the basement. Because there's only one way in and out of the basement. Maybe that's why it was a basement, not a garage. Because if they did it in the garage, there's technically another way out. You just go out through the garage door. So they wouldn't have had an alibi. But who knows? I don't know. I guess it just bothered me that they added a basement to Stu's house that doesn't exist. But again, minor, super minor. I wouldn't even call them flaws. Just little issues I had. This movie is damn near flawless. And thank you for watching this video. Thank you, everybody who was involved in making this movie and making it for Scream fans, by Scream fans, And for Wes Craven, for Wes, I know he would be proud. This was just, you guys just nailed it. Like, you guys absolutely nailed this film 100%. And that's coming from me. Like, much love to you guys for making this film the way that you did and just literally knocking it out of the park. You knocked this movie out of the park, and I couldn't be happier with it. So, thanks for watching, guys. Please go check out the film if you've already, I hope you've already seen it, because you just watched the spoiler review. But even if you hadn't, and you're like, I don't even care, I'm not going to see it, but I'll watch the spoiler review, please go check it out. Support this movie. We want more movies like this. We want more really good horror movies to come out in theaters with a lot of support behind them. So please go see the movie. And if you want to see more Scream content, check out my older videos. I have a lot of really good stuff on there, including a video where we talk a little bit about this mask, which is one of the Ghostface masks from the new film. So, yeah, if you want to, check out my older videos. Get to see this mask, talk about it, some other cool stuff, some other tidbits. I've got a lot more cool Scream content coming. Can't talk. Talked a little bit too much, I guess, maybe. And, all right, yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, guys.